Your income isn't actually following your goals. I know you set these big money goals and then you're like, why am I not reaching them? That's because your income is actually following your identity. Now, I'm revealing today how your nervous system is involved with who and what you believe you are and how you show up in the world. Plus, if you stay to the end, you're going to discover my 3-stage neural rewiring process that will help you rewire your identity to who you truly are, which is abundant and wealthy and capable of that expansion into more income and more impact. Hey guys. So today we are talking about the fact that your income is not following your goals. It's actually following who and what you believe you are, who you are embodying on an identity level. Now, I'm a psychologist with over 20 years experience working with folks about who they are, how they show up in the world so that they can basically up-level their ability to create more wealth, abundance, success, impact, income, freedom, all of the things that we truly want in our lives. And I can tell you time after time that something I see with every single entrepreneur that I work with is if things aren't working in their business, they haven't yet embodied the identity of the person who gets to have the thing that they want. And I know that sounds like a really complicated, fancy way to say they're not being the person who is the empowered CEO, who is the leader, who is confident, who is in belief, who is in self-trust. Instead, what they're doing is they're embodying the old indoctrinated beliefs, the old indoctrinated identity that actually isn't them. Now, let me get down to brass tacks here. One of my favorite analogies is the idea that I believe that we're all diamonds. We are all inherently valuable. Our authentic self, when we are able to show it to the world, it is vibrant. It is marvelous. It is absolutely spectacular. It is so valuable. It is so easy to run your business when you are operating from this diamond-esque aspect of who and what you truly are. And that is your true identity, that completely abundant person inside of you, that completely, free person inside of you, confident person inside of you, person who trusts yourself and believes in yourself and knows that you have what it takes and takes aligned action and listens to your intuition and isn't stressed out when things aren't going according to plan and isn't knocked off base. All of that is your truth. That is your authentic self. However, what happens is that diamond gets covered in crap that we take on from the rest of the world, from our experiences growing up, from traumas that we've experienced, from businesses not working out, from our partner saying things, from our mom saying, you'll never pass that math test when we were a kid, from our culture, from our neighborhood, from our uncle who was a jerk who made a lot of money. We pick up all of these messages and they end up becoming like a bunch of dirt or a bunch of crap that covers up that diamond. We've all basically convinced ourselves, though, that something is wrong with the diamond, and the diamond needs to change instead of just realizing we need to release everything that isn't the diamond. And this is the thing with identity. Your identity is that diamond. Your identity is that absolutely deserving, confident, free, feeling freaking great, getting to play in your business, play with money, and it's all feeling fabulous. That's the truth of your identity. Your highest timeline, your highest identity is who you really are. It's not about being somebody else. It's not about putting on airs. It's not about being fake. It's about embodying the truth of who and what you truly are. And that identity takes courage, right? It takes courage to have that level of authenticity, that level of permission to show up and be yourself, that permission to actually say, this is who I am, peeps. I'm not too much. I'm just right because I am embodying this identity and I'm taking up space and I deserve to be here and I am worthy of being here just in virtue of being my most authentic self. And when you can embody that identity, when you can embody that feeling, what happens is everything shifts. because you're stepping into your leadership. You're setting boundaries with people like team members or clients. You are able to say no. You are able to say your prices confidently, because let's be real. The first sale you have to make in your business is selling yourself. And so if you don't show up confidently, if you don't show up at that self-belief, if you don't show up with the absolute knowing that you are created for wealth and abundance, guess what? The world isn't going to mirror it to you. The world isn't going to mirror that back to you, because the world mirrors back to you what you believe you already are. The problem is we're all going out there and we're trying to have the world prove to us that we deserve to be there, that we deserve the place at the table, that we deserve to charge premium prices, that we deserve to raise our rates, that we deserve to set boundaries. That is ass backwards, because what happens when you do that is you are chronically disempowered, and you are never in a state where you control how you feel and you control who you are. Instead, you're always looking to the external to tell you how you feel and tell you who you are, which means that if the externals change, the economics change, your business changes, you go through a divorce, you have a difficult financial month, then you end up feeling like crap about yourself. And then you question your identity. Am I meant for this? Am I really am I really powerful? Can I be an empowered, CEO? Can I be a leader in my business? Am I entitled to be here? And you start to question yourself, and you start to go into this place of self-doubt, lack of belief, lack of confidence. And it all comes back to this identity factor, and you not sourcing the power within you that says, this is who and what I truly am. And instead constantly looking for reinforcement, affirmation, accolades from the outside to prove to you that this is who you get to be. And so it's very important to embody this identity of this strength, of this power that already exists within you, of this abundance that already exists within you, because that is the truth of who and what you are. Now, how does the nervous system fit in with this? Well, when we were talking about that diamond-esque nature and the crap covering up that diamond, right? The crap covering up that diamond, unfortunately, the traumas from the past, the stories you've been told, the ancestral wounds, all of those things ends up causing stress. It ends up causing, sometimes, you get triggered by things that are going on in the world. Sometimes it ends up throwing on the subconscious handbrake in your business because a part of you just doesn't actually believe that you're meant for this. And as those things happen, that physical stress builds up in your body, and that physical stress inside of your body gives your brain feedback that this thing that you desire isn't safe. And then your subconscious brain throws on the handbrake and holds you back from the very thing that you want, which is more income, more impact, more success, more freedom, more money, all of those things. And so our nervous system, when it's giving us the fight or flight, freeze or fawn stress response to our brain, is basically then putting on a self-sabotage program that says, don't go there, don't do this thing, because it's going to be a threat to your existence. So when we can embody this internal sense of strength, this internal feeling of confidence, this internal feeling of self-belief and self-trust, what happens is these things that we desire are no longer stressful, because we've washed the diamond, the embodied, confident identity of who and what we truly are, of all the crap from the past, the limiting beliefs, the blocks, the stories, the traumas, all of that stuff that allows us to truly step into who and what we are, and allows those things to no longer stress us out. We've let go of all of that subconscious and unconscious programming, those neural networks that were built through childhood experiences, through cultural conditioning, through trauma responses. I'm sure you've heard before the thing that says that by the age of 7, your nervous system has already basically encoded fundamental financial principles, fundamental success principles, fundamental achievement principles, fundamental principles about whether or not it's going to take a whole heck of a lot of hard work, and worthiness principles about your capacity to create more wealth and abundance before the age of 7. Now, luckily, you can rewire this. The brain is incredibly plastic. There's this thing called neuroplasticity, which basically means your brain is meant to be rewired. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, which means at any moment, you can step into that identity. You can step into that truest self. You can step into that confidence. You can step into that self-belief. This is an essential component, is you understanding and believing that that change and that shift is possible. And not only possible, but it's dying to frickin' happen as soon as you resolve and release the things that aren't you. All of that other stuff that isn't who you are. And I have seen this with client after client after client through all of my years working with them. I am actually a specialist in trauma, in the mind-body connection, in nervous system regulation. And I see how these old traumas, these old stories get implanted in our body and kick up this physical stress response that holds us back from what we desire most. And by rewiring into this internal sourcing of our worthiness, of our enoughness, of our confidence and belief that says, this is actually who I am. I don't have to build it. I don't have to heal. I just have to release. Suddenly we give ourselves permission to achieve and have a whole heck of a lot more. And it actually becomes easy to do that. This is why things like, willpower consistently fails when it comes to neural repatterning, when it comes to rewiring your brain. Because, your conscious mind is sitting there going, try harder, just do more. If you just push harder, it's all going to get better. Well, guess what happens with that? You end up coming from a place of guilt or shame. You end up coming from a place of force, hustle and push. You come from a place of I have to, I should, instead of a place of this is fun, I get to, this is natural, this is my natural state of being, this feels really good, and this is the path I'm going to follow, which is a completely different way of not just shifting your relationship with wealth and abundance and success, but it's also a completely different way for you to shift basically your relationship with yourself. You see, a lot of times, the clients I work with, they're working on their success and their money mindset usually. But the cool thing about it is when you rewire those relationships, you rewire everything. You rewire your relationships with other people. You rewire your relationships with your kids. You rewire your relationship with everything. Because when you feel like you can be authentic and you deserve to be there just in virtue of being yourself, and that your authentic truth is one of abundance and overflow, you just show up in the world in different ways. You just show up and talk to people in different ways. Your energy is different, and people can feel that. And you've probably felt that yourself, right? You've walked into a room and felt immediately at ease with somebody because of the confidence and the power that they hold. And you know that almost nothing anyone could say to that person would be able to rob them of that feeling because they have that feeling on the inside. And they're not trying to please other people, and they're not trying to constantly say the right thing. Instead, what they're doing is they're feeling as though they can be at ease in the present moment and they can be themselves. And what's more fun than just getting to be yourself and not having to try so hard, right? Everybody's walking through life in like pants that are 3 sizes too small and wondering why they're so uncomfortable. The pants being these ideas of who they have to be or what they have to be in order to finally be successful and finally have what they want. Instead of realizing that if they strip away what they're not, they become what they are. They become who they truly are. And that is an incredibly powerful thing. This impacts things like the way you hold yourself in conversations. It impacts things like the way you talk to other people, the boundaries that you set. It impacts things like unconscious communication. You know what I mean? Subtle physical cues that people can pick up on in the way that you hold yourself or the way that you are talking to them or your gestures or your smile on your face or the relaxation or tension you might hold in your body or your face when you don't think anybody's looking, right? It also creates things like that tension in your body that is creating either a feeling of relaxation for other people or a feeling of tension for other people. Because we co-regulate our nervous systems together. You ever notice when you're around somebody who's tense, you get tense? Ever notice when you're around somebody who's relaxed, you get relaxed? This is what I'm talking about, right? And so these embodied practices to shift our identity and to release the things that are not us is the essential piece of the puzzle. So it's important to understand, as I've said before, neuroplasticity. In other words, our brains are meant to change. our brains are meant to shift. Just because you've operated a certain way up until now doesn't mean you're stuck with it. You can shift it at any moment and you can always do something new. That's first and foremost. The second thing is if you feel resistance to allowing that internal diamond to shine and releasing those things from the past, that's okay. Resistance isn't a stop sign. Resistance isn't telling you that something's wrong. Resistance is just feedback, and it's giving you some data about where to dig further and about where to dig deeper. So now, my 3-stage process for neurological identity rewiring includes 1, neural regulation. This is when we go into the nervous system and we regulate our nervous system first and foremost so that we feel safe creating and living and embodying that new identity, which really isn't new, which is really who we are, embodying that new identity, because for so long we've operated out of the old conditioning, the old ways of being that have been based on that crap that surrounds the diamond, that's what our nervous system and that's what our subconscious mind thinks is safe. That's what it thinks is protecting us from being attacked in the world. And so we have to reprogram and regulate our nervous system so that the new is safe and we don't constantly go back to the comfort zone. The second thing is neural pruning. Neural pruning is essentially letting that crap go from the outside of the diamond. This is a systematically identifying those limiting beliefs, those blocks, those old stories, those stuck emotions, all of those things that have gunked up the works and made you think this is who you really are when this is who you really are. Right? And when you can let those things go and prune, basically, cut them off and let them go and release them, like the traumas from the past and all of those old tension patterns, that's when suddenly, third step, the neural integration, the new diamond, the real you emerges and thrives and is vibrant in and of itself. And we strengthen that vibrance and we reinforce those new neural pathways and we basically create new connections in your brain so that this becomes so easy to embody and this becomes your second nature. And that is the process to basically rewire your identity to who you truly are, which is absolutely 100% abundant in overflow, in confidence, in belief, in self-trust. And so if you're finding that you're not feeling those things, if you're finding that you don't feel that self-trust, confidence, belief, all of that stuff, ask yourself, who am I believing that I am because of my past? Because this isn't who I really am. Because who I truly am is that diamond in the rough.